Welcome back to the Own It podcast. We're back with Luke Banitsiotis again. You were on last week and now you're on this week again. Last week was more about 101s, kind of just some general questions about auctions. But this week is about, I've titled it, and I don't know if it's going to be the title, but I've titled it Bidding Like a Pro, or at least ChatGPT's titled it Bidding Like a Pro.
Giving away all your secrets.
Yeah, giving away all the secrets. But today we just want to talk a bit more about strategies, what buyers can do.
Yep.
That's normally, I think, one of the most common questions like I have from, again, like first time buyers, for example. Like, I'm going to an auction this weekend. What should I do? And they're like, no idea. Like, do I bid? Do I not? Anyway, like, what do you think? Like, if you're a first time buyer, are you bidding early? Do you wait to the last? I mean, last time we spoke about waiting to the last minute, but do you bid early? Do you wait till it's on the market?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think works? What do you think works best? What have you seen you think works best?
Not what your cousin's brother's uncle told you at last year's Christmas. That really works. So let's just debunk that myth, because everyone's got someone that's told them, you know, when we bought our house back in 1993, we didn't bid until this moment and that's why we bought it. At the end of the day, the property is going to sell for market value within reason. I think there's a few things, particularly if you know it's going to be a good auction, you can do. So the first prerequisite to ownership at an auction is bidding. And I would always bid early, I think, because then you know the state of play. So as a buyer, if you bid early and no one else bids, one of two things is going to happen. The agent or the auctioneer is going to place a vendor bid above you, and then they're going to ask you to bid again. And you can make that decision whether you'd like to or not. We spoke about that first right to negotiate in part one. So that's really important. And that's up to the buyer to work out whether or not they still see value. Yeah. But otherwise, if they don't, they'll pass the property into you for negotiation. And that's the best position to be in, because if you're there to buy it, you want that powerful position. And then you can make that decision. Beyond that, do you agree with the vendor's reserve price? It's up for negotiation. Then you don't have to pay the vendor's reserve price. It's a negotiation. If you think it's reasonable, of course, yeah, great, no worries. We're going to pay more than that. We'll pay the figure. Don't tell the agent that, because I'll probably cry. But you know, if you think the vendor's reserve price is reasonable, well, you've put yourself in the best position to buy.
Yeah, I am a big believer on, as you said, bidding. That's probably the first thing, bidding, and I like to bid early.
Yep.
There's really mainly two sort of pathways that an auction could go: pass in or sell under the hammer.
Yep.
I mean, like, there's multiple variations of all of that. If I know it's going to be competitive at the moment, recently I've started opening auctions above the top of the range, at the top of the range, to sort of limit momentum. Like, I know momentum is fantastic for you. From my side of things, I'm trying to limit this momentum. So I like to get a bit more aggressive. Or the other one is, if I know it's going to pass in, or I think there's a high chance of it passing in, I like to normally give it a sec just to see if anyone else will bid, but I still like to bid before the vendor bid, because, as you said, like, if you place a vendor bid, then essentially I have to bid above it.
Yep.
So I'm costing myself money. So it's the sort of sweet spots, like, hey, is there anyone else? I'll place a bid. But then if you're holding a bid, you're in control of the auction to a point. Because if you're holding a bid when you think it could be a pass in, if no one else bids, you know that there's probably not a whole lot of other interest out there. Otherwise, people would bid, because, as you said, that right of negotiation is so valuable. If you're out there, well, let's put it from this perspective, if I want to buy a property, someone else has the right to negotiate, I'm not going to let that pass into them and let them have that right. I'm always going to bid. So if I know that, if I'm holding the bid, I know that there's probably not a whole lot of interest out there if no one's bidding when I have the bid. So I like to look at it as, if you have the bid, you have the control, and you have more information. And buyers that don't bid, like, if you don't bid at all, it's probably the only, well, there's plenty of mistakes you can make, but that's probably one of the biggest mistakes you can make, not bidding.
Yeah.
Because you have no control, no information. And if it does pass in, then you're in a blind auction.
Correct.
After the auction.
Correct.
This is another question that I sort of to and fro on. Does it matter where a buyer stands during an auction? I see some stand right at the front.
Yep.
I see some hide at the back. I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle. Do you think it matters?
I'm a big believer in, on the occasions where I've gone to bid for a client, maybe a past vendor or a current vendor. I like to be known. I like to be front and center, and exactly what you said. If you can tell, and when you turn up, this is going to go and it's going to go off. It's a hot auction. It's a very aggressive opening bid. And I'll sometimes jump on top of the auctioneer when they're still finishing their call for the opening bid. Yeah. So, opening bids, bang.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I'll just unsettles the auctioneer. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Because an auctioneer that's a little bit unsettled might actually get a bit fumbly, and then that can potentially deter other buyers because they're like, what's going on? What's happening here? This is all a bit funny. Yeah. It's all a strategy on auction day. So stand up front, bid loud, bid clearly, bid quickly.
Yeah.
I've never seen someone sit back and hold back their bids have any effect on the outcome.
I agree.
But somebody that, and you did a really good video, I'm pretty sure it was you the other day or someone else did, but I think it was you, where if someone bids 1,000, you're coming straight back at with 5 or 10,000, like instantly. Yeah. That's because the person that's bidding in thousands, you might only have another 5 or 10,000 in the tank, but that person doesn't know it. And if they're only bidding in thousands, and the moment the auctioneer goes 946 and you go 551, and that's taken them 2 minutes to get that $1,000 bid, they might just go, I'm out. They've got way more money than me.
Well, you're transferring the pressure.
Correct.
If the other buyer has the bid, the pressure's on you. Mm-hmm. So if you've been sitting there for 2 minutes deciding if you want to bid or not, and then you finally give $1,000, the pressure's off you, and then it's straight back on you. It's like, I've just moved and shifted the pressure off me. Now it's back on me. No, I agree. I think if you, as well with what you said before, I think if you take control of the auction, you have more influence over it. You give yourself a better chance to buy it. I think some people can do it the wrong way. I don't think you would do it the wrong way. I think some people can do it the wrong way, where you can rub someone up the wrong way, and then they can almost want to beat you just because they might not like another bidder. Like that.
You never make it personal.
Correct.
It's just always directed to the auctioneer.
I see a lot of personal or big characters. Like the auction I was at on Sunday, there was sort of a lot of performance from some bidders, and I just think, as you said, just keep it clean, professional, have authority, be really confident. Like, this is my bid, but you don't need to go eyeballing all the other bidders. And
I think it's just keep it respectful. Yeah. Keep everyone on side, but just have a really clear plan.
Yeah.
I think if you turn up with a plan and you execute that plan, whether you buy it or not, you can walk away and go, well, we did everything we could. It didn't work this time. And another strategy, again, sorry, auctioneers, bid in odd increments. Now, not like Danny on the block where it's like $1,768,888.56. Not like that, because the auctioneer will reject that bid. But instead of bidding in 5s and 10s, maybe give a $12,000 rise. Just to, again, you might unsettle the auctioneer, which again can slow the momentum. Yeah. You won't get me. I'm a walking abacus, so you won't get me. But, that can be a strategy as well, because the other bidders then start going, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I don't know, if I was a buyer in the marketplace, I'd be like, what strategies can I implement that aren't offensive? So giving slightly odd increments, whether it's 12s, if you're bidding in 20s, give a 21, something like that, just to throw everyone out a little bit. It's unoffensive, and it might just do what you're hoping, unsettle everybody, because at the end of the day, the vendor wants to get the property sell the property for as much as possible, and the buyer wants to transact for as least as possible. So if I'm sitting on the vendor's side, employ an agent or an auctioneer that can handle all scenarios.
Yeah.
But if I'm a buyer, what am I going to do that's going to work in my favor? Yeah, and they're the two things: odd increments and strong bidding. They're the only two things that I've ever seen work.
Yeah. And I always say there's only two ways to win an auction: have more money or appear to have more money.
Yep.
And both those things, in a way, have influence over appearing to have more money. And I also, I'm really going to break this down for 2 seconds on a very niche strategy. We always say never ever set your budget on a round number.
Yep.
It's 101. Everyone probably knows that. What a lot of people then neglect is then, let's say they set a budget of $1,004,000. They're bidding in 10s. They get to $1 million, they go $1,004,000. It's quite obvious that
that's potentially your last bid.
That's your last bid. If that 4 comes out of nowhere. So sometimes, and this leans into exactly what you're saying, sometimes you have to sort of set your max bid up, because if you're not if you can't land on your max bid, you're not giving yourself the best chance to buy the property.
Yep.
And you don't want to land on your max bid and make it look super obvious. So you might in like the 950s start influencing or putting a bit of like a 7 in there, right?
Yep.
So then you can get the pattern and get a 4 in there, and then you just have to be smart enough to land on the 1,000,004. And when you get to 1,000,004, it's not going to look like, well, that was obvious.
Yep.
And you're also at the same time putting odd increments in there for the auctioneer. So you're complicating it a bit, and you're complicating it for the other buyer as well. So that's also, I know we're sort of breaking it down to like a really niche strategy, but again, odd numbers work.
Yep.
And sort of throwing auctioneers off can work, especially if they're, a newer auctioneer as well. Everyone calls their first auction at some point. So.
Correct. Yeah. So be nice to agents and auctioneers, guys. But one thing I always remind people that are buying, when we work with clients that are out in the marketplace and they're getting a bit disheartened, we talk about this strategy. I'll often go, do people win poker hands with horrible cards? And they go, all the time. And that's essentially all an auction is. It's an environment where you can have influence because no one knows what your budget is. It's not like you're wearing it across your chest. I've got 1,251,000 to
help me out, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, great. Well, why don't we open the auction at that? But people win poker hands with horrible cards. So just because you think your budget isn't going to get it, have a strategy. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least you tried.
Yep.
I think the worst thing you can do as a buyer is talk yourself out of going to an auction, because the last auction I went to, I got blown out of the water. Right now, even though the market's better than it was at the start of the year, and we're recording this in July, the market's still patchy. You can have 3 really similar homes, 2 get a great outcome, and you can't work out why the third one is flailing. It was marketed the same, priced roughly the same, just no one paid any attention to it. And on paper, it's the same home. So I think talking yourself out of going to an auction is, I know it's disheartening, and when you've missed out on a few, you really want to just take that break or be selective about the ones you go to. But I guarantee you the one that you don't go to is the one you might have bought.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you're not going to bid, at least be there just so you can have a chance if it does pass in. What's the best buyer that's bid at an auction? Like, what's the best strategy a buyer's used that's not like a buyer agent or another agent bidding? What's something someone's done that you've gone like, I think that's smart, that was clever what they've done? Or you don't feel like many buyers sort of seize the opportunity to get some influence?
I think the further in you go in the Melbourne market, so like the inner east, you're dealing with quite often some really successful business people that there's a bit of ego, a bit of bravado. I had this auction once in Surrey Hills, and every buyer there that day was just aggressive, and it was, no one took the foot off the gas. It was just, and this was back in, might have been 16 or 17 when the market was red hot. And it was, every buyer that day took that aggressive strategy. And it, while yes, the vendor benefited, it was the buyer that bought it started the auction number 1, straight out the gates. Like, didn't even let us start. I remember it clearly. I was in my preamble about the property, trying to sell the property, which, for most buyers, they don't pay attention to. It's for the vendors and the neighbours a lot of the time. But I couldn't even, and he was just, mate, I'll give you 2.3, I'll give you 2.3, I'll give you just the whole way through.
Yeah.
And then suddenly once we got that bidding, another buyer jumped in, and that was just going up in $100,000 increments really quickly. But for the most part, some people get a family member that bid with them. So to give the idea that, so they'll have 2 people on opposite ends of the auction, and it looks horrible because after the auction they mingle and everyone's like, what? Where they artificially inflate. And I think
agreed,
if there's no one else there to bid against you, you're actually paying more when you don't need to. Their theory is, well, if we make it look like there's intense competition, no one else is going to partake. Which there might be some merit to that, but I just think if there is no competition, you've just artificially inflated the price for no reason.
I've seen an advocate use that strategy.
Oh.
They bid, then their client would take the bid off when someone else bid above the advocate, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So the advocate would bid, a competition, like a competitive other buyer would bid, then their client would bid, then the competition would bid, the advocate would bid. And I'm sitting there going, like, you could see the pattern pretty quick. Because normally a buyer will just to and fro for a while. Then another buyer, one will drop out, another buyer will jump in. It rarely sort of has multiple buyers. And I'm like, oh, I could work out before the end of the auction. These guys are working together. And all I'm sitting there going is the other bidder they're bidding against is going to be going, the market's still seeing value here because there's two other buyers. And there's an advocate saying there's value here. Then there's another buyer saying there's value here. It's not like, oh, are we paying emotional value because it's just me versus someone else? I think, as you said, you're sort of artificially generating more interest. That's a mistake, I think. What's some other mistakes you see buyers make?
Honestly, I had it on Saturday. There's a buyer at the auction that we mentioned in part 1 that we passed in. They'd come through the property 3 times, but they stood there and did nothing. Like, if you want to buy the property, I get it. You don't want to overpay, but inaction isn't going to buy you the property. So it's number 1 mistake is just not doing anything. I think number 2, and this is where it can be challenging. It's often, as an agent, we see buyers in the marketplace, sometimes looking in a price range for 2-3 months that even when we've got good intentions and we say, hey guys, what you're trying to buy, I think you're going to need to make a compromise on either quality or location because it's just not going to work. And naturally they go, well, you're the agent. I'm not going to listen to you. And I'm like, that's okay. Like, I just want to give you, assistance the best I can. But then when they finally work out that, okay, I can't buy in Blackburn, so I'm going to go to Mitcham or Ringwood East Heathmont, those markets have actually bumped out beyond their capacity. And they end up chasing their tail. And it's that old, economic theory of opportunity cost. The longer they sit there and bang their head against the wall and go, this isn't fair, this isn't right, they're not worth this. Do your research. Don't be stubborn. I think that's the worst thing you can be as a buyer. It's like, of course, everyone wants to buy the nicest home possible in the nicest suburb. But there comes a point where if you keep missing out, and not missing out by 5 or 10, if you're missing out by 5 or 10, take that feedback. And if you're right at the cusp of your budget, see if you can find some more money just to get over the line or make some slight adjustments. If you're getting blown out of the water at every auction, that's a message. And that's
the market speaks.
Well, that's it. And it speaks both ways. For vendors, no one's coming through the front door. The market's speaking. For a buyer, if you keep turning up to auctions and you're not even getting a chance to put a bid in and it's going 200,000 over what you're hoping to buy it for, there's a message in that.
There's a megaphone and it's yelling at you saying, your budget is not aligning with what the market is telling you it's worth. I saw this bidder. I wasn't bidding at this auction. I just went along to it. They took a clipboard and they'd written out all their bids on what they were going to bid.
They had a script.
They had a script.
Like an auction competition.
And I saw the agent just look next to it and look at it. And then they went inside and then they came out and vendor bid very close to that buyer's limit. And they bid because that's what their script told them.
Wow.
On the market, selling, sold.
Oh, well, this was another one actually that I went to. I won't say the name of the agent or the auctioneer. You've just reminded me of it. The buyer was bidding against themselves. The auctioneer placed about 6 vendor bids. And the buyer just kept bidding and bidding and bidding. And eventually they bid over the reserve, put it on the market. And I'm like, I was standing back watching it unfold. I was shocked. Thought maybe, you really want to buy it, you might place a couple of bids just to get yourself, annoying, but okay. But it just, that's the number 1 mistake I've seen.
Don't keep bidding against vendor bids.
If, maybe go a second time, you really want to buy it, but if the agent vendor bids again, hang them out to dry.
Correct. Mate, really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you for coming on. Thanks for giving a little bit of a insight on some things that auctioneers don't love. We appreciate it. Any help helps us as buyers. So, but no, mate, you're very good at what you do. So we appreciate you taking some time out to come on here and give some of your advice.
No problem at all. It's been a good chat.
Wow, look at that time. The alarm goes off. We'll catch everyone next week. See you guys. That's good timing. That's funny.